Okay, to review though, we just looked at on those examples of direct variation. Here's one more example. Let's look at the graph and make sure we get a line. How much does it cost to buy my friend's soda if it's $2 per bottle? Well, let's say we have
0. I don't have any friends.
Okay, so you don't buy anyone anything, that is correct. It's going to start at 0, 0. Does that make it direct? Okay, that's a part of it. It has to go through 0, 0. So we're halfway there. Okay, the other part is what shape does it have to be? A line. Okay, so I also want to make sure I get a line. So let's say that we have one friend that we buy popcorn. How much is it going to be? $2. So we'll plot that. So here's the one. I'm going to go by twos just to make it easy. So there's that. What if I had 3 friends? Let's jump to 3. 6. Yep. Okay, so that's going to give me here. Let's say that I have, how far can I go here? Say 6 friends. How much is it going to cost? 12. Okay, and we could keep going, but we'll stop here. Okay, if I draw this in, do I get a line? Yeah, I do. Okay, so it is going to be direct because we went through 0, 0, and it was a line, so those are the 2 kind of criteria. Then what would be the constant? 2, each bottle costs 2. Okay, so again, as the number of friends increase, so does the cost. Remember, direct means as one goes up, so does the other. Same idea there. Okay. So now today we're going to look at inverse. What inverse means is that when 2 quantities vary inversely, one will increase, the other will decrease. So as the example here, you have a pie. Well, if I had to share it with all of you versus just sharing it with my family, which one do I get more pieces or bigger pieces? Yeah, the family, there's only 5. So again, the more people you have, the less you get to eat. So that's an inverse relationship. Okay. So again, if it's just you get to eat the whole thing. If you have to share it amongst other people, you're going to get a smaller piece. Now, what you should put in your notes is this equation. Y equals K divided by X. Now let's think about this. Yesterday, when we were finding direct, it was Y equals K times X. Well, what's the inverse of multiplying? Divide. So that's what we have here. So again, the 2 equations that you are kind of responsible for are, for direct, it's Y equals Kx. And if you know that one and you understand inverse is going to be just flipping those, then it'll be easier to remember this one. So inverse, when we write the equation, it's going to be K divided by X. Okay? Now, yesterday when we had to find the constant from that table, did we divide Y and X? Well, if I want the constant today, what am I going to do for inverse? Multiply. Again, I wouldn't remember all 4 of these. I would remember the one in blue here and the one in green. Remember those 2 because you can just manipulate those to get the ones in red. But in your notes, if you want to also write it, to find K, if we ever have to find it, we're now going to multiply X and Y. Okay, it's just the opposite of what we did yesterday. Everything's very similar besides that. Just doing the opposite. The next slide, you don't really need to write anything down. It's just another example. So a truck driver knows that driving at 75 miles per hour will get her to her destination faster than driving 65. So again, if we think about this, if your speed increases, what happens to the time it takes to get there? Yeah. One goes up, one goes down. That's an inverse relationship. That's what we're going to have. Now, the graph for something like this is going to actually be a curve here. Okay? So, as my speed, I can make this my speed if you want. And and this is the time that it takes to get there. As my speed increases, notice how it's getting closer and closer to 0 for my time. It takes less time the faster you get. So you get a curve. Now, with negatives, you could have another curve here. I'm not going to draw it because, again, speed can't be negative. Okay? So we're going to get a curve. So when we're looking here, direct gave us what shape? A line. Today we're going to get a curve. Okay, if we graph it. You notice this one, which I don't have up here, let me draw it real quick. That was a line. It goes through 0, 0. Is this one? No, why not? Why does this never hit the axis, x or y? Think of your equation. Where's x? Bottom. Can we divide by 0? No. You can't divide by 0, so that's why it's never going to cross. It's never going to touch. We're going to spend a couple days just on this function here and the transformation of it and everything. So I'm not too worried about the graph today, but just know that the graph for an inverse is the curve versus the line that we had yesterday. Okay, so how can we tell? Because now I'm going to mix both of them together. So in your homework today, or not homework, but the worksheet that we're going to work on later, I give you a table. We're still going to talk about direct, which is what we did earlier. We'll talk about inverse. If it's not on one of those, we're just going to say it's neither. Okay, we don't have to worry about the other kind. So, direct. Let's talk about the table first. If I give you a table, how did you know yesterday if it was direct? Right. Divide. So y divided by x. If you got the same number, then it was direct. Okay. So now today, how are we going to know if it's an inverse? Multiply. If you get the same number each time, it's constant, then that will be your constant. And that will be inverse. Okay. So neither is anything else. So maybe I add 3 each time or something, you know, where it's, or no, that's not going to work here. But if you don't get the same, how will you know? Now let's talk about what if it's a graph. I'll put that in parentheses. How do I know if it's direct? The line, and it goes through 0. So it has to make that line shape, and it has to go through 0. Inverse, what did we say it was going to be? Yeah. And then, again, anything else for neither. So if you get a parabola, it's something else. It's not direct or inverse. So let's look at some examples here. Okay, so I just want to look at, I've got 2 graphs here. We'll look at those and then one table. So if I look here, if I connect my dots, I make a line, right? Okay? So if we look up here, a line that was direct. Did it go through 0, 0? It did, yeah. So then this would be direct. Table. Let's divide it. First thing, we want to take 2 divided by 0. Can we do that? No, let's just check the others. 4 divided by 1 is 4. Is 5 divided by 2 4? No. Yep. Yeah. So it's not going to be direct. We also said direct has to go through 0, 0. So you could have stopped there and said, hey, I know it's not direct. Okay? Inverse. What did we say we have to do in a table then with those numbers? Times them. So let's try doing that. Well, 0 times 2 is 0. 1 times 4, 4. Does that one work? No. So this is neither. I can't divide or multiply in the answer. Now remember, also, would it go through 0, 2 if it was inverse? No, because it doesn't hit either axis. So it can't be either of those. And then the last graph here. If I connect these, I get something that looks like that. More of a curve, so what's it going to be? Now, I want to spend a little bit more time looking at the tables here. So let's look at these. Okay. So we have two things. We first want to decide, is it direct or inverse? Okay, so your first thing here or neither. Okay, it could be neither. So let's try direct first. This is what we did yesterday. So if it's direct, that means we're going to divide these two. Direct, we're looking for our constant, it's y over x. So 15 divided by 2, 7.5. Is 7.5 divided by 4 going to be 7.5? No. Okay, so it doesn't equal that. So we know it's not direct. Now, I'm writing this out so that you can see it. Again, you can do that in your head and say, hey, it's not going to work. Okay, you don't have to show me everything. Now, how do I check then to see if it's inverse? Multiplying. So what's 2 times 15 is going to give me 30. What's 4 times 7.5? Yeah. 3 times 10? 30, and 15 times 2. We already did that one. Okay, so they all multiply to the same thing. And again, you can just check a couple of them, put it in your calculator. You know, you don't have to write it out and show me unless you want to. Okay, so we know that it is going to be inverse. So the first thing you'll do is write inverse down. Now, I need the second thing here, notice, it says find the equation 2. Well, if it's inverse, what does my equation look like? Y equals what? K over x. Okay, you got it. Yep. So generically it's K over x, but you told me what's K again? 30. Yeah, it's the number we found. So what I would want you to write is inverse, and then y equals 30 over x. Okay. Now, if it's direct, you would have said 30 times x, but it's not. It is inverse, so it's 30 over x. Okay. Let's try another table one here. Okay, first thing, I'm going to divide, because that was the first thing that we did. So what's 10 divided by 2? 5. So I want to check to see if it's direct. I'm going to divide. So here, when I divide, I get 5. What do I get when I divide those two? 2. They're not the same. So I know it's not. Okay, so direct is no. What do I do to check inverse? I am. Okay, so 2 times 10 is 20. 4 times 8 is 32. Do those equal? No. Those do not equal either. So it's not inverse. So then what do we write? Neither. If it's neither, can I write an equation? No. Okay, and someone had asked yesterday on that. Remember, in the homework, I'm going to have lines here for these answers, but I'm not going to just put one line here because that gives it away. So again, I would have 2 lines here, but you can just leave the second one blank. Another student said you could put and slash A non-applicable. That would be fine too. Okay, why don't you guys try these 3 and see what you can come up with. All right, so for this one, did you guys get direct or inverse? This one should be direct. Now, again, it's kind of confusing to keep it all straight, but when you have a table and it's direct, that means you're going to take 8 and divide it by 0.2. When you do that, when you divided them, you got 40 for each of those. So 20 divided by a half is 40. So then your equation should have been y equals 40. Okay? Now this one, if you divide them, well, half the 16 is gonna be 8. 40 divided by 0.2 is nowhere close, it's 80. So that dividing doesn't work, but if you multiply each of these, you will get 8 for all of them. So 2 times 4 is 8, 1 times 8 is 8, and so on. So we get 8 here, so if I multiply, is that inverse or direct? So if it's inverse, what does my equation look like? Yeah, k over x, and our k was 8, so I would like 8 over x. Okay, so the equation is dividing, but if I'm looking for the constant, I multiply. They're the opposite. How about c? Neither, nothing works. If you divided them, here you would have gotten 80. When you divide those two, you get like 8 something. So that's not going to work. If you multiply them, here you get 20, and 12 times 1.2 is like 14.4. So again, you're not 20. So you're done. That's it. Okay. Questions? Yeah, we do. I'm going to pause here. When we get back,